London with the firm of Kozloff Stout, 2640 Westview Drive, Wyomissing 19610. And I have with me as witnesses Jim Radwanski, Peter Laux, and Greg Boja.
Okay. Sandy, do you want to swear the three of them in at this point, and then we'll go to Dave?
Mr. Radwanski and Mr. Boja. Okay, Mr. Boja is on, and Mr. Radwanski needs to unmute.
All right. Will you please raise your right hand?
Yeah.
Do you swear this testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you swear in Mr. Parrish?
Do you swear this testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Has notice for this appeal been given?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Mr. Price?
Thank you. Exhibit number 1 is the notice. Exhibit number 2 is proof of publication of the notice. Exhibit number 3 is proof of posting of the notice. Exhibit number 4 is the application, including all of its attachments. And exhibit number 5 is the zoning ordinance of the City of Reading as amended.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. London, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'll call as my first witness, James Radwanski. Mr. Radwanski, the applicant is J&A Court LLC. What is your affiliation with J&A Court LLC?
I'm the owner.
Okay, is J&A Court the owner of the property located at 1319 Wayne Street?
Yes, it is.
What's the current use of that property?
The current use of that property is an office and storage building.
And has J&A Court filed an application seeking to change that use?
Yes.
What use does J&A Court want to change the property at 1319 Wayne Street?
To a low-rise apartment building.
Can you describe what you're asking the board to allow you to do in more detail?
We're asking the board to do the variance to change the use of a permit to adaptive reuse of a building for a 17-unit low-rise apartment building, 1 and 2 bedrooms apartment.
Does J&A Court have experience in the ownership and management of other apartment complexes in the city?
Yes, we do.
What other apartment complexes are owned and managed by J&A Court?
We have 132 Warren Street. We have the Bookbindery apartment on 4th and Walnut Street, and we have the 500 block of Lancaster Avenue.
For the Wayne Street property, if this variance is granted, do you intend to charge market rate rent?
Yes, we do.
What are the price points you're considering for these apartments?
It'll be in the range of $700 for a single bedroom to $850 for a double.
In what zoning district is the property located?
MC, which is manufacturing and commercial.
Is that under section 600-811 of the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the allowable uses in that district?
Yes.
And is the building suitable for any of those uses?
No, it's not.
And why not?
Basically, it's a dead-end road. It's an insignificant amount of the roadway and the highway, especially if trucks are going to come for deliveries. There's problems getting tractor trailers down there to turn around and make deliveries to that warehouse any longer.
Right. For what is the building currently being used?
It's basically just a storage building right now.
Okay. There's a mention of office use. Is there any office use of the building?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Is it viable to continue the building in its current use?
No, it's not.
Why not?
It's the material storage place is a waste of unusable space, and it's just hard for everybody to get in. It's not desirable for office use or anything.
Would you be able to sell the building for any of the uses permitted in the manufacturing commercial zoning district?
No.
Have you tried to sell the building?
Yes, we did have it on the market for a while, and we didn't have anybody that could fit the need for the place.
Right. And would that be for the reasons that you described?
Yes.
In addition to the use, are you seeking any other variances?
Yes, we are. We're asking for dimensional variance on the buffering, the setbacks, open space requirements. We're putting stair towers at each end. We are not altering the building or adding additional paving areas. Basically, and we're going to meet all parking requirements for the apartment complex.
Can you describe the neighborhoods surrounding the building?
There is an apartment right next door to it and single living residents on all sides, in addition to a commercial and industrial uses across the street.
Would the conversion of the facility to a low-rise apartment building have any detrimental impact on the surrounding community?
No, not at all.
Would it change the character of the neighborhood in any way?
The only thing it would do is enhance the area to a level where I think Reading wants to be. Right now, the warehouse in the office is basically a very old structured building and needs to be renovated.
Okay. I have what I had marked as an exhibit. It is a drone photograph. If somebody could put that up on the screen share.
I think we all have it in our packets.
You do. I had sent over meeting packets. So I'd like that marked as Exhibit 1.
It will be Exhibit 6.
Exhibit 6, I'm sorry. Okay, looking at the exhibit, is that the current appearance of the property?
Yeah, so are you looking at picture 1? So I'm looking at the right picture?
I'm looking at this picture.
Oh, okay. Yes, that is the current building, yes.
And would you be improving the appearance of the property?
Yes, we will be.
Would there be any negative impacts on traffic?
No.
And why is that?
It's a dead-end street anyway, so you really can't come down the street and go anywhere because there's no place to go. It's a dead-end street. So it'd be traffic into the apartment complex and traffic back out.
And would be traffic going mainly out towards the Warren Street bypass?
It would. Mm-hmm.
Are these the minimum variances necessary to afford relief?
Yes.
Did you make any changes to the building that created this hardship?
No.
You had testified that the variances, if granted, would improve the character of the neighborhood. Why do you believe that?
It'll enhance the neighborhood. It's an old building right now. It basically, the roof is deteriorated. The building is in really rough shape, and it's going to give you a new structure. It's going to help out the city of Reading. It's going to bring more people into the workplace.
Okay. And I don't have any further questions for Mr. Redwanski.
Okay, what we've usually done is we will ask if there's any questions of this witness.
Okay, you're there, but there's
and
okay,
the next
sure.
witness. So Mr. Bars is not with us tonight. Mr. Gattone, do you have any questions of this witness? All right, hearing none. Mr. Harsh, any
I believe you
questions?
can mute.
No questions.
And I have no questions. So if you want to move on to your next witness.
Okay, I'll call Peter
Oh,
Lux.
Mr. Fox, I'm sorry. Mr. Fox, question.
Sorry. I do not have any questions.
All right, go ahead, Ms. London.
Okay,
And don't forget me.
Well, I did. You were muted. Do you have any questions, sir? Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff, no questions. I heard the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, the next witness is Peter Laux. And could you state your name, please?
Peter J. Laux.
Are you employed?
I am. I'm the owner of Kleckner Laux Architects.
And are you a registered architect in Pennsylvania?
I am.
Are you a registered architect in any other jurisdictions?
Yes, I'm also registered in New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and Florida.
Okay, and how long have you been in practice as a registered architect in Pennsylvania?
Since 2007.
I would ask that Mr. Laux be qualified as an expert witness.
We'll stipulate to that. That's not a problem.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lux, did you prepare drawings and renderings for the project known as J.A. Court Apartments?
Yes, I did.
And for whom did you prepare these drawings?
For Jim Radwanski, the owner.
Can you describe the project for us?
Yeah, so we're going to do an adaptive reuse of an existing building that had previously been used for primarily warehousing with some office, and now turning it into a 17-unit low-rise apartment building.
Mr. Radwanski testified as to the current appearance of the property. I have what was prepared for the packets that will mark as exhibit. We have to exhibit 7.
Yes.
Okay, exhibit 7, and the words proposed front elevation are on it. Do you have it in front of you?
I do, yes.
Did you prepare that drawing?
Yes, we did.
And what does that show?
Okay, so that shows to either end in the red, those would be additions to the building that would have stair towers. The right side would have an elevator. It would also have mechanical space to feed the building. The center area, the 2 tones of gray, are showing what was the existing building. We've added different color of siding to it, and also some return gables to add some relief and character to the front of the building.
What is the building height as proposed?
Right now, it's an 18-foot to the eaves, and the roof ridge is 28 feet.
Have you prepared architectural drawings for the proposed apartment building?
Yes, we have.
And these are included in your packets. They were also submitted with the application. And we'll mark that as Exhibit 8. Since the submission of the application, have there been any changes to the drawings?
No, there has not.
Okay. Let's just briefly go through these plans. First, if you go to the second page, I believe, would there be any demolition that would be required?
Yes, so the existing building does have some office area to the one end, and also a mezzanine level to it that would have to be demolished and taken out. So it's all primarily interior demolition. There is some loading doors that need to come out, but it's primarily interior demolition.
Are there going to be any changes to the footprint of the building?
Only in the area where the loading dock is to fill that in.
Okay.
And then, of course, the stair towers to either end.
And utilizing the renderings that you prepared, can you describe the apartments and the building as they're intended?
So both floors will have a mixture of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. The one floor has 9 units, the other has 8. We have 586 square feet, I believe, for the one bedroom apartments, and I forget now what the other for the 2 bedroom units. It's sorry.
Will the 2 bedroom units meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, they will. Yeah, absolutely.
For the square footage?
Yeah. All the units have bathrooms. They all have kitchens. All units are easily or already going to be adaptable for accessibility. They're all on an accessible route because there's an elevator being included in the building. And they all will meet the egress requirements for life safety.
And will the building meet all state and local building codes and requirements?
Yes, it will.
Do you believe that the adaptive reuse of this warehouse building for a low-rise apartment building would have any negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood?
No, I don't. I do not.
Do you believe that it would have a positive impact?
Absolutely, yes.
And why do you believe that?
Oh, God.
The building itself, as it sits, is in serious need of rehabilitation. The building will become much more of a architectural feature than what it is now. It'll be a vibrant presentation to the street and to the area.
And are all of the opinions that you've offered this evening rendered with a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Absolutely.
All right. I have no further questions for Mr. Laux.
Okay. Mr. Gattone, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Fox?
No questions.
Mr. Harst?
No questions.
I have one brief question. Given the site that you have there, was there any opportunity you could see any place to give a little bit of green space for like a small playground or outside area if people had children that rented those apartments?
My scope of work is primarily just to do the design of the adaptive reuse of the building itself.
Okay, all right, that's fine. You've answered my question. We can get back to that later.
We'll present the testimony of Mr. Boja, who may be able to give some answers to that question.
Okay. Mr. Price, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay. Mr. Paris, any questions?
No, thank you.
Well, the
Okay.
only question I would have to get to that point about the playground, Mr. Radwanski, how far is Stone Cliff Park from that proposed?
It's one block over. It's the next block.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, Ms. London?
Yeah, I'll call my next witness, Greg Boja.
Okay.
Okay, Greg, unmute yourself. Okay, there you go.
You got it?
Yep, got it. You're good. Could you please state your full name?
Greg A. Boja?
Are you employed?
Yes, at Boja Engineering, president.
And what is your job title? You said you're president?
Yep,
Okay. Are you a licensed professional engineer in Pennsylvania?
I am.
Any
Mr.
other?
Boja's been before us many
Yeah.
times.
Okay.
We'll stipulate.
Would you like your qualifications next? Okay, you're good.
Thank you.
Are you, Mr. Boja, are you familiar with the property located at 1319 Wayne Street in the city of Reading?
Yes.
And how are you familiar with this property?
We are hired by Mr. Wadwanski, the owner, and perform site inspections and surveys of it.
And did you prepare the plan which was attached to this application?
Yes,
Okay, now, as recently as today, the plan was updated. Mr. Price and Mr. Paris, did the board receive the up-to-date plan?
I forwarded both emails, including the update with the replacement exhibit.
Okay, very good. I'd like that marked as Exhibit 8. Is it's a 3-page exhibit, project title Wayne Street Apartment Complex, concept plan, building permit plan. Is that the plan that you prepared for the proposed apartment complex?
yes.
And what was the purpose of this plan?
The purpose of the plan was to demonstrate how the project would fit with the zoning ordinance. It allows Mr. Paris to go through and identify the zoning requests that we found, as well as any that he might have found as he went through his review process. And it really provides a plan that's to a standard process that the zoning hearing board would like to see when plans are brought before them.
Okay, can you, looking at the first page titled Wayne Street Apartment Complex Building Permit, can you briefly describe what is?
Sure. There's 2 access points. You would enter from the south. It's a one-way access. You would then traverse through the parking area around the site in a northerly fashion until you would hit the northernmost point. Then you would turn left and go west along the proposed stair tower and then back out to Wayne Street. It provides a total of 27 parking spaces. The requirement that we saw was 26.
Okay, with that requirement, is that the requirement of 1.5 spaces per apartment unit, or whether it's an apartment or adaptive reuse?
Correct. We just went with the straight 1.5.
And going to the second page, and it is titled Project Title Wayne Street Apartment Complex Concept. Can you tell us what that shows?
Yeah, that shows the parking area out there today. It's really just paved pretty much from property line to property line and completely against the building. So what we were showing was there's opportunities to improve the property, to provide some landscaping, to green it further from its current status. And that's really what the plan was indicating.
And now going to the third page, can you tell the board what that shows?
Sure. As part of the process for zoning, we'd like to go ahead and show the lighting fixtures, about how it would meet the zoning ordinance as far as lighting and foot candles. So what you see in front of you is really a 10 by 10 grid that shows the foot candles of the proposed lighting that could be placed here at this proposed site.
And is this lighting compliant with city regulations for lighting?
Yes, we believe it is.
Are you familiar with the City of Reading zoning ordinance?
Yes.
You heard the testimony. The property is located in the manufacturing commercial district. Were you
Correct.
present for the testimony of Mr. Redwanski as to why, although the apartment use is not a permitted use, that there are hardships which would support a variance?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the MC zoning district's dimensional requirements?
Yes,
Are these noted on the plan under zoning data?
they are.
Where there are nonconformities, are these pre-existing nonconformities?
We had listed in our list, would you like me to go down like section 611.01G, J, K, and L?
Yes.
Basically, we realized we kept the most prominent need of the property was really to provide the required parking. So we felt that that's what the zoning administrator as well as the zoning hearing board would like us to do. So in order to request the project through the approval process, if the board felt that it was an existing nonconformity, which as the proposed building sits on the property today, we would be fine with that if that's the way they voted. In the alternative, if they didn't vote that way, and as Mr. Paris had pointed out that he didn't consider it to be an existing nonconformity, we wanted to ask for the variance for the strip of land that would be surrounding the building at a minimum of the 5 feet per section 611.01G. We also recognize that the parking would need to be against the building, which is why we were looking for the variance from section 611.01J. And I know when I first did my first inspection out there, that the cars that I guess get towed throughout the city were being placed at that lot at that time. And there was many more cars than the 27 that's being proposed. So I felt that would also really be an improvement from where it had been in the past. The next one is the 10-foot buffer strip from the abutting property lines. Again, the others are really more of a commercial use, like the heating oil or the auto repair. This is really an improvement when you would take this from its existing condition and you would look at the dwellings that are to the east. This is more of a transition for the land use and really a betterment for all the properties around it. The last one had to do with section 611.01L as far as the 10% for the required yards. Again, we took something that was basically 100% paved and we're introducing a betterment to where it is today.
So if these variances are granted, would they lessen the level of pre-existing nonconformity?
Correct, it would be a lesser level.
Are you familiar with driveway requirements in the zoning ordinance?
Are you familiar with what? Can you repeat that?
Driveway, D-R-I-V-E-W-A-Y?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you familiar with driveway requirements in the zoning ordinance?
Yes,
Will the driveway be able to meet all site distance and distance from intersection requirements in the zoning ordinance?
yes.
Are the hardships that you described in the form of physical characteristics unique to this property, which prevent it from being used in literal conformance with the zoning ordinance?
Correct. It's basically we're bringing a property that was out of conformance and we're bringing it more into conformity with the improvements that we've indicated.
Okay, in your opinion, were any of these hardships self-created?
No, this is the way the property has been for quite some time.
And are the variances being requested the minimum variances that will afford relief?
Yes.
And in your professional opinion, do you believe that there will be any detrimental change to the neighborhood as a result of this apartment use?
I do not. I feel it would be a betterment to the neighborhood.
And are all the opinions which you've offered this evening rendered with a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Yes.
I don't have anything further for Mr. Boscia.
Okay. Mr. Gattone, any questions?
No question, but let me just remind you, I was muted at the time of the voting for our 3 appeals. I want to be recorded as a positive for those 3. But no questions with respect to this appeal.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fox, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Harst?
No questions.
Okay. I think you've kind of answered my questions, Mr. Borgia, when you looked at the improvements and what remains in there in terms of land. So that mutes that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rubino.
Okay. Mr. Price, anything?
I have no questions.
Mr. Paris?
I have just one question. There was a comment made by a previous witness that that this property was not suitable for commercial use, in part because it's on a dead-end road. And I think there was a comment that it was hard to get into, which I understood to mean having to do with traffic, coming off of that, coming onto that dead-end road. If assuming that's correct, my question for Mr. Boscia is, do you anticipate that changing this to a residential apartment with 17 units would have any negative impact on the neighborhood from a traffic standpoint, given that it is a dead-end street?
Sure. What I looked at that Mr. Radwanski was testifying to was off the 12th Street Expressway, that because there's no longer a connection with the way the PennDOT has cut off Wayne Street, that it was really unable for any trucks to come in and service the existing establishment, which is why he was probably having a lot of trouble selling, because they need to have access for trucks for facilities for warehousing and manufacturing commercial type use. So that was where I believe a lot of his testimony was. As far as your question goes with the uses, obviously the residential will create some amount of traffic. It's relatively minor in comparison to what a street can withstand, really, because there's not really that much traffic on Wayne Street. It's relatively about as minor as you can be. So if you look and say if you add 20 or cars during an entire peak hour, which would be more than I think this would generate, that a street can typically handle over 1,000 in each lane. So that's why I would tell you that I don't see any detriments to the traffic for Wayne Street.
Thank you.
Certainly. Mr. Borgia, just one quick question. When you prepared that, I think Mr. Radwanski said something about, we know that there's a residence in the back, but I thought he said there was a residence on either side of that property, but according to the plan, those are both businesses.
He would probably be best to speak to that. I know that on the north and east side that there was 3 properties, along that property line that were residential. That's what I had on our plan. And if he would like to speak, then he could clarify his testimony.
If you look at the drawing that she had up there and you're standing out on Wayne Street looking at the property, you would see to the left side there is a small business running as a tire business, and it's a 5-unit apartment complex with it. On the right side, if you're standing on Wayne Street, it is for some of the trucks for the fuel company, which is Penn Pride. And that's all it is there on that street.
Okay. All right. That answers my question then. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. London, well, before we go to that, is there anybody in the audience online that would like to ask a question of any of these witnesses? All right, hearing none. If Mr. Price, would you like to add anything at this point?
Nope.
I'll move for the admission of exhibits 6 through 8.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paris, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would just add that in our written staff report, I should say in the original review letter for the zoning application, there is a comment that if approved, this may be subject to subdivision and land development requirements as well. And that was not referenced in the latest staff report, but I just wanted to point that out, bring that to the board and the applicant's attention, that would also be a required step in the process if it is approved at the zoning level.
I think we would expect to have to go through some level of land development.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add, Ms. London?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Hearing that, I will close this appeal. Our decision will be made at next month's meeting. I doubt that we'll still be in person, unfortunately, and the decision will be mailed to you. We thank all of you for your attention, and we appreciated the very thorough plans, Mr. Borgia.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
You
Thank
bet. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Sandy, are you okay?
Yep, I am. Thank you.
All right. The next matter before us will be Appeal 2020-07, 125 Morgantown Road. This is CTF Enterprises LP record owner is requesting a variance from side yard and rear yard setbacks for 28 existing storage containers at the subject property, which is located in the manufacturing commercial MC zoning district. Okay. Would you swear in our zoning officer, please?
Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, has notice for this appeal been given?
Yes, it has.
Okay, Mr. Price.
Thanks. I'll put some exhibits into the record. Exhibit number 1 is the notice. Exhibit number 2 is proof of publication of the notice. Exhibit number 3 is proof of posting of the notice. Exhibit number 4 is the application, including all of its attachments. And exhibit number 5 is the zoning ordinance of the City of Reading as amended.
Okay, Mr. Marola, would you like to enter your appearance, and whomever you're going to have testify, we'll have them sworn in at this time so we can keep things moving.
Thank you. My name is Mark Marola, M-E-R-O-L-L-A. My firm is Brumbach, Mancuso, and Fagley. It's P.O. Box 500 in Shillington, 19607. Mr. Caldwell is our witness, Randall Caldwell.
All right, Mr. Caldwell, will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Caldwell. What is the name of your company?
CTF Enterprises LP.
And what's your title with CTF?
I am a co-owner or partner with Michelle Morley, who is also on this call.
Does CTF own the property that is known as 125 Morgantown Road?
Yes, sir, it does.
And when did you purchase that property?
November of 2008.
Is that a commercial property?
It is.
Can you describe the building and the improvements that were on the property when you purchased it in 2008?
Sure, it's pretty much exactly as is when we purchased it, which is Enterprise Car Rental. That's on the one side. You got the hookah lounge on the other side. You've got some interior tenants. One is a CB shop, one is the Reading Education Association, and one is Pansophic. And then in the back, you have 28 storage units that were on the property when we acquired it.
And for the board, as well, since I'm not there with you, in the application, Mr. Caldwell, did you attach a property drawing that you had John Hofford prepare?
I did.
And have you changed the building in any way as far as the size or use of the building since you purchased it in 2008?
We have not, just some, maintenance and improvements as far as cosmetics.
All right, and we're here tonight about the storage units. Can you briefly describe to the board what kind of units are there?
Yeah, so we have 28 storage containers. The majority of those are 8 by 20, and there's a few 8 by 40 storage containers. Some of the individual tenants that have been there have actually been there, believe it or not, since 2008. It seems like there's a lot of folks in Reading that they put their stuff in storage and seem to just keep on storing it there for quite a long time, as well as we have several also professionals that come in there to store their work stuff, so they're contractor types. So we have kind of a mixed use of contractors. For the most part, though, it's just folks that are storing it. It's dry storage only. And as I mentioned, the turnover is low. We pride ourselves on pretty much having the best price in the area for storage, which is why we typically only have 1 or 2 empty units. And even that's as soon as one becomes available, they are occupied almost within a week.
If the units were on the property in 2008 when you purchased it, would you know when they were placed there originally?
I was under the impression by the previous owner, but again, I don't have a firm date, but they were on there for like a couple of years. Is really as scientific as I can get.
By the assessment office, the property is 1.13 acres. Does that sound about correct to you?
That is correct.
And the shape of your property is basically a triangle?
It is.
And the front is front by Route 10?
Correct.
On the right side is UGI.
That is also, yes, correct.
And behind your property is the Schuylkill River Greenway Association.
That is correct. They have a trail that goes along the back, but it's way back and down the hill. So yeah, I mean, it's, in fact, I didn't even realize they were back there until this, this came about.
Is there a fence along the back of the property between your property and the Schuylkill River Greenway's property?
Yes, sir.
And the storage units are there inside the fence?
That is correct.
Okay. So behind it is basically just trees, or are there buildings back there?
Behind on the back end, it's just all trees, and then there's a big drop off to where it goes down to a path, which the storage units themselves are not visible from that path.
Okay. And as noted by the zoning office, there may be, by the zoning office, maybe 4 units that are partially on the Schuylkill River Greenway Association's property. Have you negotiated a lease with that group?
We have. We actually have negotiated $100 a year for 10 years, so $1,000 lease for a 10-year lease.
Okay. But as of this time, do you have that signed returned from the association?
We have a verbal from that association, but we do not have the signed lease. I suspect what's holding it back is what we're all seeing with this COVID-19. Things are just getting delayed, especially with a nonprofit organization like that association.
Okay. Okay. On the side of your property, looking to the side that fronts UGI, or butts UGI rather.
Is that looking from Route 10 on the right side of the property?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
did you, during the course of this, did you discover that some of these containers were not located on your property?
We did, and yes, to answer your question, we did.
Okay.
It was like, from what I understand, it was considered kind of no man's land.
All right. So did you prosecute a quiet title action in the Berks County Court?
We did.
And is it your understanding that the quiet title action resulted in an order that was issued back in September?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Price, I think we're at Exhibit 6. I sent a copy of that order.
I believe so, yep.
And I guess the board would have it, but I'd ask that to be Exhibit 6.
Sure. And essentially that quiet title, Mr. Marola, gave your client ownership to the center line of the unopened Summit Avenue, correct?
Correct.
And so all those containers that were in that unopened paper street are now within his property, correct?
Correct. And of course, we still have the problem of this setback. We're seeking for relief. Mr. Caldwell, though the containers, they're marked 8 containers on, would be the right side of your property. Why don't you pull those so that they are 10 feet off of the property line?
That would definitely create a problem with access to the back, whether it's for the garbage truck, the fire truck, and also those storage tenants, because basically that would impede upon the driveway there.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Marola?
Yes.
UGI has not exercised its an action for quiet title to take to the other side of the center line of Summit, correct?
UGI, the basically the quiet title action was there's a flaw in the this was a one big property back to the 50s, and UGI acquired their property to the center line, moving, I guess, right to left on the screen.
Okay.
They ended up to the center line. The prior deed that ended up being 125 Morgantown Road, our property. The original description ended at the curb line instead of the center line.
So
UGI didn't do anything. They haven't done anything.
All right, so they do take to the center line already. But from the center line of your client to the UGI building, how far is that?
To the building?
Yeah.
Mr. Caldwell, how far do you think it is from the end of your containers to the building for UGI?
To UGI's building, it's at least, I would guess, over 100 yards.
There's I believe, is there a parking lot in between?
Well, there's a pretty wide driveway to allow for their big trucks to get into their back area, which is fenced as well. So before so you have a grass patch from on the right side of those containers that you're looking at on the line, and then you have a grass patch. Well, first off, you have trees that are in one of the pictures that I was looking at earlier. You then have a grass patch, and then you have their driveway back to their back access, gated access parking lot.
And there is a tree at the rear of your 8 containers, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of the question.
There is a tree located on the UGI property, kind of obscuring your containers from the UGI building, correct?
Yes, sir. There's actually a lot of shrubbery trees all along there. So from the UGI side, I did take some pictures. They're really not visible from UGI.
I'm sorry to interject.
Okay, as the containers in the back, what prevents you from moving those so they are 20 feet off of the rear property line?
Yeah, Mark, that would be the same issue. Basically, we have our like the tenants, the 5 tenants that are in the retail, office strip, use the there's a trash dumpster back there. That would that would be an impediment to that, as well as certainly you would need the fire trucks to have access in case anything were to happen in the back area there, as well as some of those tenants do have receiving in the back as well. Oh, did I lose you, Mark?
Mark, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
I just dropped out for a second. Am I okay to continue?
I can hear you.
Okay. Mr. Caldwell. I didn't hear the end of maybe your question, but has CTF changed anything about the property, the storage containers at all since you've owned the building?
We have not. Aside from painting the units, we've not done anything else. We haven't added any. So no, we haven't done any material changes.
Are you asking for permission to change anything about how the property is being used or the setup of the property?
We are not.
If this variance is granted, will your request alter the character of the neighborhood?
No, absolutely not.
If the variance is granted, will it impair the use of any of the properties that adjoin your property?
No, it will not.
If the variance is granted, is it the minimum that will afford relief to you and represent the least modification possible to the regulations at issue?
Mark, you faded out just a little bit on my end. I'm sorry. What was the question?
If the relief requested, is it the minimum that will afford your excuse me, let me back up. Is the relief you're requesting the minimum that will allow you to continue to use the property as it is used now?
Yes, it is.
Will the use of the property, if the variance is granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare in any way?
Not at all, no.
If the variance is not granted, will the hardship you would encounter be that the property would no longer be economically viable?
It would not. It absolutely, when we purchased it, and to this day, the storage, the rent received from the storage units is a key component to the viability of the overall investment. So, yes, it would be very detrimental to the business.
Do you understand if the variance is granted, you will have to obtain the consent through a lease or another way from the Schuylkill River Greenway Association for those several units that are on their property?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand if the variance is granted, you may be required to submit a land use proposal or other requirements from the city of Reading?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Looks like we may have lost Phil here.
I think we lost Phil.
Let me see if he's trying to reconnect.
Phil's trying.
Well, I assume that the only thing I would ask to admit that exhibit number 6, the order.
All right. It's in. While we're trying to get Phil, Mr. Fox, do you have any questions for Mr. Caldwell?
I do not.
All right. Mr. Gatone, do you have any questions for Mr. Caldwell?
No, I don't.
All right. Now I see Mr. Rabina's back on, so I'll hand the baton to you, Mr. Rabina.
Okay. This may have been covered while I was off in cyberspace someplace. Those containers that you have, could they be moved any place else on that property? I noticed there's a lot of macadam to the left, and some of those could be brought in a little bit closer to the building from the back. Has any of that been discussed or covered in the time that I was gone?
It was, Phil. The witness testified that trying to move any of those containers at the rear or the side of the property closer to the building would impede fire equipment to get back there, garbage trucks, things like that. So it's not possible.
Okay, what I was thinking was if they could move them totally from there and put them to the left of the building where there was a large macadam area. That's what I was thinking about. Like move about 6 of them to the left of the building facing it, and then bringing the 8 that were all the way in the back just forward a little bit, and then they would still have access for the fire trucks and so forth.
That's the parking for the enterprise rental cars.
Oh, okay.
On the left side, that's the enterprise rental car.
All right. Thank you. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
Mr. Morella, you want to continue? Do you have anything else?
I was going to say, the other problem that we have over there is that with the rear setback and the front setback on the left side, there's problems there also. But I didn't have any other questions for Mr. Caldwell. We were just finishing up.
Okay.
I have no questions.
All right. Mr. Paris?
I don't have any questions for the witness. I have a comment when they're finished.
All right. Okay. Comments. Let's go. We'll go. Mr. Price, any comments?
Nope.
Mr. Paris, any comment?
I did want to just respond regarding the area to the west of the property that shows as macadam. This was already mentioned, but our recommendation as far as moving the containers, we would not recommend that because of the loss of parking spaces that are required for the other uses. And then my other comment was that, as was mentioned briefly in here and is also in our report, there would be a requirement to have a lot annexation to make it so that portion that was subject to the quiet title action would be reconfigured and made part of the same parcel.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anybody else have any comments they would like to make? I don't think we have any witnesses, do we?
Nope.
I mean, any other people out there that would like to comment on the hearing?
I do not see anyone's hands raised, and there was no one else registered to participate.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Marola, any last comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, that closes this appeal. We'll issue a decision at next month's meeting, and I thank all of you for that. And again, my apologies for all the havoc I created there. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Sandy, you still okay?
I am, thank you.
All right, the next appeal is 2020-14. It's 916 Olive Street. Eagle Run Holdings, LLC record owner, appeals the determination of the zoning officer to deny a group care home at the subject property located in the R1 residential zoning district and Heights Conservation District. Relief is also requested from the provision requiring that such appeals must be filed within 30 days of an alleged error. Okay, thank you.
Just restate the address again.
The address?
Yes,
is
just restate it.
916 Olive Street.
1916.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all right.
All right. Sandy, would you swear in our zoning officer?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Has notice for this appeal been given?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Mr. Price.
Thanks. I'll enter some exhibits into the record. Exhibit number 1 is the notice. Exhibit number 2 is proof of publication of the notice. Exhibit number 3 is proof of posting of the notice. Exhibit number 4 is the application, including all of its attachments. And exhibit number 5 is the zoning ordinance of the city of Reading as amended.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Kolonis, if you'd like to enter your appearance, and then the 2 witnesses that you have will swear them in after you've entered your appearance.
Thank you, Mr. Rabina. Thomas L. Clonis with the firm of Hoffert and Clonis, PC, 536 Court Street, Reading, Pennsylvania, 19601.
Okay, and your 2 witnesses are?
Well, I was only aware of one witness,
Oh,
and that would be Mr. Dolphin, Gabriel Dolphin.
All
All
right.
right, Mr. Dolphin, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Mr. Dolphin, are you there?
No, Mr. Dolphin? We don't have him?
No.
I'm checking the participant list, and I do see that there's 2 dial-ins. I can try to unmute both of those to see if one of them might be
Yeah.
attempting.
Doesn't look like it's muted, but
There's a 215 area code and a 267 area code.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, I'm sorry for the problem.
it's Mr. Dolphin?
Yes,
All right, Mr. Dolphin, do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Proceed, Mr. Kolonis.
Thank you, Mr. Rabina. It's my understanding that we're going to be addressing 2 things, and the first item would be our motion to reconsider the zoning appeal nunc pro tunc. So if it please the board, I would like to start with the nunc pro tunc motion.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, Mr. Dolphin, first of all, what is your relationship to Eagle Run Holdings LLC?
Managing member.
Okay, and let me direct your attention to the spring of this year. Did you receive a notice from the zoning officer, his decision?
Yes, I did.
And when did you receive that decision?
It was in April this year.
Was the date of his decision April 9th of 2020?
Yes,
And this was in the height of the lockdown, was it not?
it was.
And when you received this, the decision of the zoning officer, did you make attempts to try to secure counsel in the Reading area?
I did.
And where do you reside, sir?
In New Jersey.
Okay. And can you tell the zoning hearing board what efforts you took to try to secure counsel and what the outcome of those efforts were?
I tried to contact several law firms or lawyers, and nobody was available. Either they didn't answer the phones, or they had a message that they were closed, or left a message and nobody returned calls.
Did you ultimately get a call from me, sir?
Yes, I
A
did.
return call from me. And when you spoke to me, do you have a recollection as to when we first spoke?
It was in the beginning of July.
And had my law firm just reopened at that time?
Yes,
And did you at that point in time retain my law firm?
I did.
And when did you return your fee agreement letter to our office? Or when did you sign it?
July 15th.
And what was the date that I mailed that to you, if you recall? It was the date on the letter.
I believe it's July, around July 15th or July 9th.
July 9th, yes, that's correct. And then when was your initial appeal ultimately filed?
I believe it was on the 31st of July.
It was. And but for your inability to secure counsel, was there any delay on your part? When did you first try calling attorneys to try to secure an attorney for this matter?
It was a few days after I received the determination from the zoning officer.
And do you have a recollection as to how many law firms you may have called?
Probably about 8.
And do you believe that you acted as quickly and as reasonably as you could under the circumstances of the pandemic?
Yes.
And are you asking the zoning hearing board to permit your application of the appeal from the zoning officer to proceed today?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions with regard to Mr. Dolphin regarding his nunc-pro-tunc application.
So,
Okay, Mr. Price, I'm going to let you handle this.
all right, so board members, what Mr. Clonis and his client are asking you to do is to extend the time within which the property owner could appeal the zoning officer's determination. So essentially what happened here, an application was filed for a zoning permit. It was denied based upon the fact that this was a group home. The applicant had 30 days to appeal that determination. He's not asking for a variance or a special exception. He's asking you to determine whether or not what the zoning officer did was correct. So if you are inclined to say, yes, we will hear this appeal of the zoning officer's determination, that's within your discretion. If you say no, the case is over and Mr. Clonis would have to take it to the Court of Common Pleas or refile.
Okay. Mr. Paris, your feelings on this, please?
I don't have any objection to proceeding to the merits.
Okay. I would assume then that I should probably make a motion to whether we allow the appeal to move forward or whether we deny it.
Correct.
So I will make a motion to hear the appeal this evening and allow it to go forward. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fox. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Hearing none. So we will allow this to proceed, Mr. Colonis. Thank you.
Just one question. Everything is ready to go. In other words, if we proceed, all the documentation is ready to go at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
This is not a variance or a special exception. This is an appeal from the zoning officer's determination.
Right. Okay. So if you want to proceed with your presentation, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Rabina. Mr. Dolphin, can you describe the property at issue here, 1916 Olive Street?
It's a home for 2 individuals with intellectual disabilities. There's one caretaker.
Mr. Dolphin, just listen to the question. My question is, can you describe the property? What type of property is this? The home, the structure?
It's a single family home.
Okay, is it a row home?
No,
Is it a semi-detached?
no,
Is it a single standing unit?
yes.
Okay. And how many bedrooms are in that property?
Look at the plans I submitted. There's several bedrooms, but only 2 are used as bedrooms.
Okay. And let's talk about the overall property. Is there off-street parking for this property?
Yes,
Do you have a garage, an indoor garage?
yes.
And how many vehicles does that hold?
The garage or the driveway?
The garage.
The garage holds 1.
Okay. And then do you have a driveway into the garage?
I do.
And how many motor vehicles does the driveway hold?
2.
What is the approximate size of the driveway?
18 feet wide.
By how long, sir?
I'm not sure.
Okay. But long enough that you can pull a car in and it's off the street?
You could pull several cars inside, yes.
Okay. So you have off-street parking for how many motor vehicles then, sir?
For 3.
For 3. Okay. And currently, your use intended for this property is for, I believe you indicated 2 handicapped individuals. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2 individuals with intellectual disabilities.
So they are mentally impaired, sir, or disabled? Yes. Okay.
Yes, they are.
And so these are 2 individuals who are unrelated. Is that correct?
Correct.
And they would reside there. This is their residence, correct?
Correct.
And would there be any other individuals there at the house? Is there anyone else that would be residing there, so sleeping there, living there?
No.
Now, would you have anyone there who would assist the disabled individuals?
Yes.
And would that be an employee of Eagle Run Holdings LLC?
No.
Is it an employee of a separate company?
Yes.
Okay. And would that individual be there for several hours each day?
Yes.
And so you would have that individual who would be bringing a motor vehicle onto the property. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Would the 2 individuals who are mentally impaired, do they drive? Are they able to drive?
No.
Do you have a motor vehicle there for their use?
Not me, no.
No. Does the company have a motor vehicle there for the use of the individuals who are handicapped?
Yes.
They do not drive it, but the caretaker would drive it. Is that how that works? Can you explain that to the
Correct.
board?
Yes, that's exactly how it works.
So there would be a total of 2 motor vehicles there at most typically. Is that a fair assessment?
That's correct.
And there are 3 off-street parking places.
That's right.
Okay. And these individuals are mentally disabled. Is that correct, sir?
It is.
And in your appeal of the determination from the zoning officer, was it your belief that the determination of the zoning officer failed to take into consideration the Fair Housing Act?
I did.
And do you believe that?
Excuse me, can you repeat your answer?
I did. I did believe that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is it your assertion, Mr. Dolphin, that the determination of the zoning officer is in violation of the Fair Housing Act and discriminatory for the two mentally impaired individuals?
Yes, it is.
Are you asking the zoning hearing board to overturn the decision of the zoning officer and permit the use of the residence as a residence for two handicapped individuals as
Yes,
their
I am.
residents?
Excuse me,
Yes,
Pete,
I am.
your answer, please.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
And while it was considered a group home, it's really just a home for two handicapped individuals. Is that correct? They're just unrelated.
That is correct.
And in your opinion, does the impact on the neighborhood or community, is it any greater than any other family residing in that home?
It is not any greater.
May it please the zoning hearing board, I would like to direct the zoning hearing board to Title 42 of the United States Code, Chapter 45. That is the Fair Housing Act. And then there were the 1988 amendments to that. And I specifically direct the board to Section 3604, subsection F3B.
Could you do me a favor?
Yes.
Could you forward that to me by email so I can distribute it to the board?
I would love to. Unfortunately, my office has been shut down. My secretary tested positive for COVID.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm in quarantine. While I was waiting my turn tonight, I got a text message from my secretary and she is positive.
Well,
So our office is closed and quarantined. I can give you the citation. I can do that.
Send it to me by email?
I can. I just can't send you the whole statute
No, just send
by email.
Just send me the citation and I'll look it up myself.
Okay, that would be great. I don't know if I have your email, but I would. In addition to the if you could get me, I can give you my email address, and if you could email me, then I'll be happy to send you not only the statute, but I have several cases here for the board's consideration as well. There are two Third Circuit cases. One is Hobson's Inc. versus the Township of Brick, and the other one is Community Services Inc. versus Wind Gap Municipal Authority. And both of these are Third Circuit cases. In the Wind Gap Municipal Authority, the actual board granted the reasonable accommodations under the Fair Housing Act amendments to the plaintiff, but there were issues with regard to the relative to the water. Long and the short of it is, in much of the dicta, you will see that the case follows the Hobson's Inc. case, which in that case the plaintiff actually sought to put in a nursing home in a residential area, and the court held that a nursing home was a dwelling within the meaning of Section 3602 of Title 42 of the United States Code. And actually, in that case, while a group home was not permitted, and a whole nursing home was permitted in a residential area. And then the case that is probably most helpful is a 1995 United States Supreme Court decision, the City of Edmonds versus Oxford House Inc. And this was and majority opinion written by the late Justice Ginsburg. And in this particular case, there were 10 to 12 adults who were in recovery who resided in a group home, and they were issued a violation under the zoning code, which defined a single family dwelling as 2 or more persons related by genetics or by marriage. And long and the short of it is the court held in that case that this violated the Fair Housing Act, and that the Fair Housing Act, the meaning is broad and inclusive and should encompass and be accorded generous construction, and that zoning could not cap these individuals, and that these individuals fell under the Fair Housing Act. And the actual statute itself does, we don't have to go out as far as the Supreme Court did in that case, in finding people who were in recovery to fall under the definition of a handicapped individual, because in the definitions of the statute itself, under 3602, handicap means any individual who has a physical or mental impairment which limits their abilities. So I will send you these case citations as well as the statute, or if you just want the statute, I'll be happy to send just the statute to you, Mr. Price.
What's your email?
My email address is T as in Tom, and then my last name, Klonis, all lowercase, at H as in Hoffert, K as in Clonus, M as in Maury, -law.com.
All right, I'll email you tomorrow.
Okay, and then I'll be happy to get you, the case citations as well as the statute itself. But essentially, what we are saying is that pursuant to 42 USC Chapter 45, the Fair Housing Act, you cannot discriminate against these 2 individuals. This is their residence, and just because they're unrelated, you cannot discriminate against them, and it is incumbent upon the municipality to make reasonable accommodations for such individuals so that they can reside and not be discriminated against. And in addition, just for the board, the zoning hearing board's edification, the statute also provides penalties in the event there are violations of this act. So
the board, Tom. I'll email you tomorrow, and then I'll go over the statute with the board.
Okay, very good. I believe that's all the testimony that I have from Mr. Golphin and the case law. And, it's our position that the zoning officer's determination should be reversed based upon the statute and the case law regarding the Fair Housing Act.
Okay, at this point, I usually go to questions from the board. Mr. Gattone, do you have any questions?
Yes, nothing. Of course, it's incumbent upon us to make some accommodations, but it's also, I believe, incumbent upon a description. I would like to have a description of the degree of disability for each of the 2 individuals. What kind of assistance may they need? Length of time present for the employee. For instance, would these people have the ability to get out of the house if there's no employee there? Is there an alarm system, fire and otherwise, for that building? These are little questions that I think should be, perhaps they should be forwarded to our attorney so that we can fully understand the impact of the disability, because we're all familiar with people with disabilities, believe me, and we want to do what's right. We want it to be if we approve it. We want it to be safe for them and safe for the rest of the community. So that's my comments.
Okay, Mr.
Well, I believe my witness may be able to answer some of those questions.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Mr. Dolphin, could you hear the questions that were just raised?
I did.
Can you answer some of those questions for the board, please?
I could answer some of them. Not sure if I have all the information, but I do know some facts. One of the individuals is blind. He does attend a day program. He has family who actually lives in Reading. So her family is a part of the Reading community. She needs help with activities of daily living. She doesn't talk, but uses sign language. She likes to visit local stores, go bowling, and enjoy everyday life.
Did you say, hold on a second, she doesn't talk, but she uses sign language? How does she,
Exactly.
but she can hear, so she can't verbalize, but she can use sign language to sign to other people, but she can hear. Is that correct?
That's correct. When I say she doesn't talk, I'm not referring to her medical status of not able to talk, but just how she behaves.
Understood.
She doesn't talk much. She likes to visit local stores, going bowling, and enjoy everyday life. The other individual is more functioning. She just needs help with making good choices, not to hang out with the wrong people. She likes to do arts and crafts, visit local stores. But that person mostly needs help with staying safe around people. That's all that I can tell you right now regarding the actual individuals residing there.
So do you think that you had mentioned one employee, I believe you mentioned just one employee, would one of the employees that you mentioned, not essentially from you, but from this other company, would that one person be able to singularly handle all the requirements, the distinct differences for those of the requirements for those two people to get them around the house, to get them around the city?
Yes, absolutely. And these individuals have extensive medical, psychological assessments. So it means that their service plans have been thoroughly worked on and researched based on clinical information, on social information, and psychological information. So their plan is designed to have one caretaker for both of them. Just to explain how it works is each individual has a service plan that's very thorough. It could be 60, 70, 80 pages long. And that plan includes the staffing that the individual needs. So nobody is deciding on the spot, how many caretakers they need. This is extremely detailed. It's researched. It's based on medical information, social information, and it's based on the input of a whole team that decides what is safe for the individual.
Is there
The other question he had, Mr. Dolphin, was approximately how long that individual is there each day?
And when do they move in? Is that the question?
No, the caretaker.
The
How long is he
caretaker, there's a caretaker 24 hours a day, but it's not the same caretaker. But there is somebody in the home 24 hours a day.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Fox, any questions?
Yes, I have a few. I'd like to talk to Mr. Dolphin. Could you tell me something about Eagle Run Holdings?
It's a real estate holding company.
Are you operating any other group homes, and where are they, if so?
We don't operate group homes. we own real estate.
Where else do you own real estate?
All over the state.
And you are based where?
Our legal address is in Lakewood, New Jersey.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the name of the town.
Lakewood, New Jersey.
Right. So you are a real estate company and you own the property and you subcontract out to people that are specialties in the fields that these people need.
I would say that we lease the homes or the properties to the group home company.
And what's the name of the group home company?
Care Sense Living.
And where are they located?
They have homes all over the state as well, but their headquarters is in Newtown, Pennsylvania.
Can you repeat the name of the company?
Care Sense. That's CARESENSE. Living.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Harsh?
Yes, you did not mention in your testimony that the people that were going to be supervising these students or these individuals was going to be there 24 hours a day. And I heard you say that to Mr. Fox. That's a critical issue as far as I'm concerned, because if these people have disabilities, they can't function by themselves. Could you comment?
I believe his testimony was that they do not reside there. So what the way it works is there are multiple caretakers that will arrive there probably throughout the day. So Mr. Dolphin, do they work an 8-hour shift?
It could vary the shifts. I can't tell you exactly how many hours each caretaker is there. What I can tell you is that each caretaker stays there for part of the day, and there is somebody there 24 hours a day. Not exactly the same caretaker, but there will be a caretaker at any given time during the day and the night.
Okay. All right. I just have one question. Right now, the two individuals that are going to be there, you talked about them. Do you get a choice of what kind of clients you can put in these different homes? Or once you've signed on to do this type of work, whatever the issues are that a client has, you have to accept them?
Not sure if I understood the question 100%, but the client has to be suitable for the home, and the home has to be suitable for the client. If there's a legitimate reason, I guess, why the home is not suitable for the client or vice versa, then that's one thing. But for no reason, that's not acceptable. For no reason to move people in or out.
Well, the reason that I asked that question is many years ago in this city, we had a situation where there was a person who was prone to violent outbreaks and really created havoc in the community. And unfortunately, the agency just didn't have the right fit. So I just wanted to know, apparently now you try to match clients to situations and vice versa. So I think that answers my question. All right. Mr. Paris, any questions of this witness?
Yes, I do. Mr. Dolphin and Mr. Price, is the denied zoning permit and denial letter an exhibit?
Yeah, that's exhibit number 4.
Exhibit 4. I'm referring to exhibit number 4, the denied zoning permit. Mr. Dolphin, you applied for a group home with 2 residents on your zoning permit application. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you understand that the zoning office is prohibited from approving a use that is not an allowed use in a zoning district?
I guess I know that, yeah.
And are you aware that in this zoning district, the residential R1 district, this use, which was proposed as a group home, is not allowed?
Well, I know that after I received your letter.
And are you aware that there are other residential zoning districts in the city of Reading, including the R2 and the R3, where group care homes are permitted uses, or excuse me, are allowed uses, conditional uses, the case may be?
You know that now that you sent me the letter.
And I just wanted to clarify, as far as your position here, is it that this is a residential use or a commercial use?
Residential.
And are the individuals living at the property, and I know this was alluded to in a prior question, but are they your residential tenants, or is their arrangement with the property owner different from that of a residential tenant?
I'm not sure if this will answer your question, but they do pay rent to be there.
And to whom do they pay rent?
To Kirsten's Living.
And is CareSense basically subletting these to these individuals, subletting the property to these individuals?
Correct.
The other question that I have is with respect to parking. Our office has received complaints that there is parking of the vehicles that spills out onto the street, but also in a way that blocks the driveway. There have been complaints that when the vehicles park in the driveway, that they hang out and block pedestrian path access to the driveway. And I wanted to just ask you about that. You had testified that the driveway is long enough for the vehicles that are required for the residents and for the caretakers to have sufficient space to park in there. But I wonder if you could speak to why then they would be blocking the sidewalk and or spilling out onto the street if there is in fact adequate space there.
Well, this is the first time that I hear that there was a complaint, so I have no information at all regarding any parking issues, because I never heard anything till now.
And finally, do you have any information about when the caretaker changes? I understand that there's 24-hour coverage, but when there's a change in caretakers, how long is the overlap period, and how do they do the handoff in terms of where they park their vehicles and so forth?
I'm assuming it's not a long overlap. It's just one caretaker goes, one comes. So I don't believe there is a significant overlap.
And my last question is, how long did you operate as a group home prior to requesting zoning approval?
The first resident moved in around May of last year.
And you submitted your zoning permit application in March of 2020, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions.
I have a question. Are you associated with the CareSense group that's located on Hampton Boulevard?
Yes, that's a Kirsten's Home Care. Yes.
Okay, because I know. All right, just want to know.
Mr. Price, questions?
I have nothing.
Okay. Now, I see that we have some participants out there. I would say that if any of them have any questions of Mr. Dalphin, I don't want to hear whether you're for or against it. Just if there are any questions of Mr. Dalphin, we will do that. And later on, if people are for this appeal or against this appeal, we'll deal with that later. So I don't know in what order we have these people, but that's what I want to hear is any questions of Mr. Dolphin, nothing else.
Mr. Rabina, the order that we received, that we have them registered is Ms. Kelleher, Mr. Wombold, and Mr. and Mrs. Mann.
Okay, so we'll do it that way. We'll start with Ms. Kelleher.
No questions.
All right, Mr. Wambold?
Yes, thank you for taking my question. Mr. Gaffin, I was wondering, did you contact the zoning board in the allotted 30 days to explain your hardship finding a law firm, or did you just wait till you were able to retain Mr. Colonis?
I don't.
May it please the board, I would object to the question as being moot at this point, since the board has already ruled on that issue.
Well, I think the witness can answer it, even though the appeal non-pro-tunc is going forward. But let me just put into the record. City Hall, Mr. Paris, were you in City Hall in March, April, May, or June?
City Hall closed to the public. The City Hall actually remained open during that time via phone and email, and we had a Dropbox that was open during that time. We had basically a minimum of one person in the office pretty much during the entirety of the closure.
But so, Mr. Wampold, the appeal is being heard. The issue of whether or not he reached out to Mr. Paris after the April 9th letter is, I would say, moot at this point.
All right, Mr. Mann.
Yes. Yes. Can Mr. Dolphin, does he have a relationship with CareSense himself?
Yes.
And what is your role at CareSense?
I have an ownership share.
So your real estate company leases to the service provider, CareSense.
Exactly.
Okay.
Um,
These are only questions.
I know. I would like to speak to the question of the number of people living in the house. He stated there were 2, and he described 3.
Can I have your name, please? Who's speaking?
This is Mrs. Mann, Carolyn Mann.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I don't think he described 3.
I believe he did. If you will look back at what was said, he described
A male and
a
two
male
females.
and 2 females. One female that didn't speak and one female that was a little crafty.
The record will reflect that when we get the
The
transcript.
record will reflect that because I live directly across the street and I see 3 people there.
But if you see 3 people, that's for testimony, but.
Well, I know, but my question is, I would like him to speak to saying, he said there were 2. Is he sure?
I'm 100% sure there's 2 people living there.
You are 100% sure? Okay, may I ask why you described 3?
Mr. Dolphin, did you describe 3?
Hello? I'm sorry, I think,
Did you
I would like to know why you described 3 people.
I didn't describe 3 people as far as I remember.
Okay. I would like to speak to the question of, you say you've never heard of any complaints?
Not me, no.
Because I have made calls to the city and to CareSense numerous times. I know my city ones were logged. I would have to question why you don't have any of them to CareSense.
I can't answer your question. I do not know.
Okay. You mentioned this was a family neighborhood. And so do you really think that highest and best use of your property?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, this is a family neighborhood, and you mentioned that. So you really think the best use of this property is to be a care home as opposed to a single-family home residence?
Well, it's a home for two individuals with intellectual disabilities who reside there as any other person.
Yes, and I'd like to talk about, you mentioned there's only one caretaker there at a time?
Yes.
One. At a time? Over their
Sorry, I
shift?
couldn't hear that.
There's only one there during a shift?
Correct.
So, is there a reason there's usually 3 to 4 cars out front?
I'm not sure why.
Okay. Have you been to this property?
No.
Oh, then, okay. So you wouldn't realize that if there's 4 extra cars on this street of 8 houses, it's kind of noticeable.
I would object to the question. The individual, the
I'm
witness
sorry,
has
okay, I take it
testified that he
back.
has not been there.
All right, I take it back.
How many homes does CareSense operate?
It's about 20 probably right now.
Mm-hmm.
How many are in Reading? I'm sorry, this is Robert Wombold. I wanted to ask that earlier. How many homes does CareSense operate in Reading, and how many are in R1 areas?
I'm not sure about the zoning areas. I do not know.
Could you answer how many homes you operate in Reading?
Probably, I believe it's 3.
Could you provide their addresses so we can check the zoning?
I would have to look them up.
I would like you to provide those to the zoning officer, please.
Sure.
I'm obviously, I'm a neighbor. I live down up the street from Carolyn, and it would probably be prudent for Mr. Gaffin to look at some of the complaints, especially the quality of life issues where
This is time for questions. When you want to give testimony, you can give testimony. But right
okay. I'm sorry.
All right. If nobody has any more questions at this point, then I would like to see if Mr. Parrish has anything to add, or Mr. Price, and then anybody who wants to testify either for or against the granting of this application can speak at this time. Now, if we're going to get 5 people who say the same thing for the same reason, maybe we could have one person say it and other people, they'll give their name and their address and just say, yes, we either support or oppose it based on those reasons. But when you make those comments, you have to give your name and your address, and I believe you need to be sworn in. So whichever order we wish to take them, why, go ahead, Mr. Price.
Well, why don't we start with Mr. Wombold was the first to ask questions, I believe.
Okay.
So, Mr. Wombold, if you want to be sworn in and give testimony, you can do that now.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Wombo, do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Robert Wombold, 1940 Olive Street. And I'll provide my testimony. My wife and I are the newest homeowners on the 1900 block of Olive Street. We moved from Exeter. We were looking for a ranch house in a nice, stable neighborhood, and we looked for quite some time to try to find that combination. When our realtor suggested we look at the house that we bought, actually I was concerned about the area. But she told us it was located in the Heights Conservation District, and she explained the rules that govern the area. and it was all positive. She had a little booklet that, explained about how an area becomes a conservation district. So before we even looked at the house, we drove around several little blocks and we looked how nicely the homes were maintained, and we were very pleased. So we went forward and we went to a couple showings of the house, and we ended up buying the property. Almost immediately after moving in, we found our neighbors were really friendly. They went out of their way to introduce themselves, and make us feel welcome. And pretty quickly, we got to know everybody's names on the block. So I'll fast forward to more recent times. At one point, we noticed that the 1916 property was empty and was for sale, but it did sell relatively quick. But then we noticed that something was different about the house. The first thing I noticed were there are a lot of different cars coming and going, kind of on a regular pattern. And I was just wondering, what's going on there? Just didn't seem quite normal. And then the grass began to grow and grow. It was obviously the property wasn't being maintained well. At times, the grass would be probably close to a foot tall. I know several neighbors have complained, and the city had to come out and force the property owner to cut the grass. And when they did cut the grass, they didn't do a great job. They would leave clippings everywhere. The sidewalk would be covered with slippery grass. I know this went on several times. At one point, someone decided to make trim the shrubbery and trees on that, and they bagged it all up and they put it on the side of the house. And this is probably more than 6-8 months ago. Those bags are still there, piled up against the house. Who knows what's living in those bags? The city picks up brush for free if you put it in the correct paper bags, but they just never bother to do that. Now, I noticed in the zoning appeal that it states there was space for 3 cars in the driveway, and there's absolutely no impact. Like another person has testified, there's more than 2 cars there. There's often the overlap when the shift change, but also when they do park a car in the driveway, it's often parked across the sidewalk. So people walking their strollers or their dogs or someone in a wheelchair, they have to go in the street or they have to choose another route to go because the sidewalk's blocked. And I can provide you pictures. I even emailed someone some of the pictures. I've tried to be a good neighbor, and I left notes. Kindly pull your car in, a couple more feet so that you don't block the sidewalk. Be a good neighbor. I even asked one of the care workers outside that if she could, do the right thing and not block the sidewalk. And I asked her, I said, kindly, tell your other coworkers, we'd all appreciate that. Just be a good neighbor. But even today, someone was parked on the sidewalk. In closing, I want to state, I'm not a heartless individual, and I understand those residents need care. But to my knowledge, this is a residential R1 area. This type of business is not permitted. I don't know about any of my other neighbors were ever made aware that 1916 was going to be a group home. What is concerning to me is that they decided to operate a group home without checking zoning requirements, but just felt they could just slip it in under the radar.
I'll be covering that.
Without action from the zoning board, what is to prevent a halfway house for criminals, a drug rehab, a needle exchange, or something in a residential neighborhood? I would hope the zoning board recognizes the best interest of the homeowners. I thank you for your time, and your efforts to maintain the stability of our neighborhood and the city of Reading. Thank you for your time, for my time.
All right. Who's next?
Mr. and Mrs. Mann then ask questions. And again, as Mr. Rabina stated, if Mr. Wambold addressed your concerns, you can be sworn in and say, we agree with Mr. Wambold's testimony, or you want to add something different. It's up to you.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Mann, do you want to be sworn in?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Mann, do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is your address?
It's 1909 Olive Street. We live directly across the street from the property.
So, I mean, I have a picture window that faces.
Yeah. So, yeah, I concur with Mr. Wambo. But we would contend that there's often more than 2 residents in that property, and most of the time there are more than 2 employees there. Sometimes there are 3 or even 4 cars, and again, affirming that sometimes these cars are never using the driveway. They never use the garage, and sometimes the cars are blocking the sidewalk. Oftentimes, someone will be by to pick up employees at night, and they're double parking in the street, sometimes playing loud music as the doors are opened and closed. The property, again, I want to affirm the property. The property is being treated like a typical absentee landlord. Out of state, they have multiple properties spread everywhere. I would bet that most of these properties are maintained in the same really haphazard manner. I concur. The grass grew all summer long. I think it was cut twice. I have photos of the side of the property. The bags of garbage are still there. The weeds are still high. Almost total neglect. The first time that the property exterior was maintained was about a month ago, certainly in advance of this hearing.
The broken branches on the tree that are about to fall on the sidewalk.
Yeah, there's a half dead tree on the front lawn.
I would also have to address the communication and the lack of attorney. I guess that might be a moot point, but we tried to contact CareSense like numerous times, which he says he's part owner in, and we got no response at all. And that was before we reported them and everything to the city. And I don't understand how a real estate company doesn't have an attorney, so I find that kind of questionable. And I've met 3 people living there, so I'm confused as to how there are only 2.
Yeah, and our concern also, as we mentioned before, the home is being run as it is now. So what happens 5 years from now when there's another owner? And again, this isn't R1. It's the College Heights neighborhood. I have no problem College Manor neighborhood. I have no problem with the residents. I just don't think that this kind of operation, and it's not a residential operation. This is being run as a commercial enterprise with 20 couple dozen locations, and the real estate setup relationship with the CareSense Corporation. This is a commercial enterprise. And thanks a lot for hearing us out, and thanks for your time.
All right. Is there anybody else, Mr. Paris, that wants to speak?
Linda Kelleher is on, I think.
Yes.
Ms. Keller, proceed.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah.
And again, if you're going to confirm the other testimony, you can just say, I confirm Mr. Wambold's and Mr. and Mrs. Mann's testimony.
Thank you. Linda, I'll wait till you're ready.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Linda Kelleher, 1521 North 15th Street, and I'm the president of the College Heights Community Council organization. I'm speaking for the organization this evening, and the organization asks the zoning board to uphold the zoning administrator's denial of this application. This neighborhood has been designated as a low-density R1 neighborhood since the city started zoning in 1957. Neighbors have worked hard to retain the character of the neighborhood by opposing new uses that are not compatible with low-density residential life. To date, this R1 area has only 3 businesses, and those businesses do not disrupt the character of the neighborhood. A group home would. There is a group home in the 1500 block directly behind my house. That home did the same as this one. They slipped in and hoped they would not get caught. The city has 8 residential zoning districts, and group homes are allowed by conditional use in 4 of them. Perhaps the property owner should have consulted with the zoning office before purchasing the property. As you consider your decision, please consider that approving this property as a group home applies forever, beyond the needs of the 2 or 3 people that are currently residing there. So the College Heights organization, again, asks you to uphold the zoning administrator's denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keller. Mr. Clonis, I presume you don't have any cross-examination of Ms. Kelleher or Mr. Wamble?
I just have closing.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, there's Carolyn on here too. I don't know. Who's Carolyn?
Was that Mr. Mann's wife?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Okay.
I thought that's who it was.
Okay.
All right. Do you have anything in closing, Mr. Paris? Any statements? And then we'll go to Mr. Price and then Mr. Colonis.
Mr. Chairman, I just do have a brief statement, and that's just to reiterate, as Mr. Price pointed out in the beginning, this is not before us as before the board as a variance or a special exception. It is a question of whether the zoning officer's determination was correct. And in this case, because the application was presented to us for a group home, it's not an allowed use in the zoning district, and we are bound by the zoning ordinance to follow it and deny an application for something that's not an allowed use. So we believe that the determination was correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Price, anything?
Nothing.
Okay, Mr. Colonis.
Thank you. First of all, understand we heard some comments from some of the residents that dealt with property maintenance, and property maintenance is an entirely separate issue, and the city obviously has remedies if the property is not being maintained in accordance with the city's ordinances. And then we did hear some testimony from one individual who indicated that this could turn into a place with recovering drug addicts and this was a residential district, and that he bought his home there, and I understand all of that, and I also understand the zoning officer's determination and how he came to that conclusion. However, that conclusion violates the Fair Housing Act, and it flies in the face of City of Edmonds versus Oxford House, the United States Supreme Court case, which deals with this. In City of Edmonds, this was zoned as a single-family residential neighborhood, and the court found that 10 to 12 adults recovering from alcoholism and drug addiction were permitted to live in that residential district, and that the city's citation of them violated the Fair Housing Act, and that even though there were other areas in the municipality that were zoned for multifamily and general commercial uses, that the court held in Edmonds that the people were allowed to stay in a single family residential zone. Well, I understand that is not the way your ordinance is written, and I understand that is how your zoning officer has come to his conclusion. The reality is your zoning ordinance is trumped by the federal statute. This is a statute that prevents discrimination. These individuals who are residing there, and it makes no difference whether it's 2 or 3, but that, if you read the cases, is irrelevant. But those individuals have every right to live in a residential, single-family neighborhood as anyone else. And that is the purpose of this statute, to